There are disasters that bring millions and thousands of pain to humanity: earthquakes, storms, natural disasters that cause thousands of people to die in a blink of an eye. But there is one thing that is even more painful. That is the death of a whole nation. Their remains are torn to pieces. The poor people can't understand what they did wrong to suffer that suffering, and that is the crime of killing them. When mentioning the world's largest human extermination, we cannot forget the Holocaust, the Second World War. It was a genocide that took place with the state and the progressive parties, which took the lives of about 6 million Jews, including 3 million men, 2 million women, and 1 million children. After World War II, the Allies gave 15,000 Jews freedom in Germany. Few of them were lucky to survive, some were backward, and many of them were exterminated. However, there was one ethnic group that was not lucky to survive after another devastating genocide: the Red Nation. Over the millennia, it can be seen as the Red Nation was no longer there, because after many wars, the people lost their land in the hands of the white people, were forced to integrate culture and leave the lives of Aryans. We often say that Christopher Columbus is the one who invented the American skin, but that is not enough, because before Columbus, there were thousands, millions of red-skinned people living on that land, and Columbus was only the first white person to find this land. That is the misconception that many people have misunderstood. The scientific exploration of the world has always been in Columbus from an early age. The 15th century saw the world grow with many major commercial activities. That is why the explorers are always forced to find new lands to expand the trade market. On the way to India by sea, Christopher Columbus found another piece of land. That is the United States. A piece of land outside him and the red-haired people living there. No one has ever found, because the illusion of finding India was successful. He called the people living there Indians. The Reds live on this land by farming cattle to get meat, cooking and peeling their skin to make clothes and tents. There is an argument that the Reds Gulf can originate from Asian people to North America through the land along the Bering Strait of Canada, about 12,000 years before the Constitution. The colonial American Society of Columbus was still a society of tribes. Major tribes such as Blackfoot, Cheyenne, Dakota, Comanche, divided into large villages. Some tribes smaller than a few thousand people are usually divided into several villages or just one village. The division of living helps the indigenous Americans manage the problem of food production, but less have to compete with each other. Although later they were all called by the common name of the Red Riding Hood, each tribe has its own cultural features, customs, language, and different costumes. In addition to the differences, these tribes also share some common views, such as social structure and characteristic cultural features. The Red Riding Hood is known for being people who live in harmony and respect nature. They caught and picked the wild ones, considered them as gifts from God, and always show gratitude to nature. The nature of the wild was included in the Vietnamese textbooks. The paper of the red-bearded leader was printed in the 6th grade textbook. The 14th President of the United States, Franklin Pierce, expressed his desire to buy the land of the red-bearded. Captain Seaton answered with this book. This is a very famous book, which is considered one of the best books on the environment and nature. The book says, "For my compatriots, every land is a fairyland, every pine tree, every sandstorm, every sparkling bone in the vast forests, every desert, and the sound of insects' roars are fairylands in the memories and experiences of my compatriots. The flowing lines of garbage in the trees also carry the memories of the red-skinned people. When the white skin dies, they often wander between stars and forget the country they will go. We cannot forget this beautiful land, because this land belongs to the mother of the red-haired people. We are part of the mother, and the mother is also part of us. The flowers are the sister, the brother of us. The rocks, the water on the grass, the warmth of the horse, and the human, all belong to the same family. This land belongs to the mother of the red-haired people. That is how the indigenous Americans still worship nature where they were born to live, like a child who has always been raised by his mother. Their lives were peaceful until the European explorers, the white people who set foot on this land, and the pioneer of that exploration journey was Columbus, who, as mentioned above, was then the beginning of the many other clashes of the white people with the Americans. Westerners believe that they are more civilized, so they don't need to know who is who. They kind of reenact and gather and call together Indian, because the explorer Christopher Colbert originally mistook this for India, and when he saw some races with dark brown skin or some tribes with red face tattoos or red painted figures on their faces to stimulate the fighting spirit, they called it Redskin or Red Indian, and since then, the term has been used to describe the red skin that is commonly used. The glory of the European people was also captured through the film Color of the Queen. The Princess Pocahontas immediately read the direct voice of the detective John Speed, speaking in private, and the entire white detective team from the United States in general. I think I'm a stupid idiot because I've been to many different lands, but if that idiot is really me, why don't you know so much? Alan Menken also took the best quotes to create the inspiration for the song when talking about things that John Smith and the Americans have never thought of. He thinks he owns any land he sets foot on. The earth is just a dead thing that he can own. But I know all rocks, trees and creatures all have a life, a spirit, a name. It's how Disney made the red skin voice when directly let Princess Pocahontas talk to John Smith, an American explorer. The song also shows the beauty of the people, the soul of nature, and also calls for equality for all nations. The white people took advantage of the struggle and difficulties of the indigenous people to occupy the land, losing the unity of the red people. The Red War began and lasted from the 17th century to the early 20th century. In the book titled American Holocaust, American philosopher David Starno said that the determination to kill indigenous people in America through many campaigns of Europeans and the following generations was the most heinous act in human history. After 1815, the United States strengthened territorial borders by occupying the land of the Reds. They passed the 1830 Reds Law, repealed the Reds Rule, and forced the Reds to live in Mississippi, then Oklahoma, and Kansas. During that movement, more than 10,000 indigenous people died of hunger and starvation. The three largest tribes in the east of Mississippi are Choctaw, Creek, and Cherokee. Each tribe has about 20,000 people who were chased, about 2,000 people were churro-talked, 4,500 people were creeked, and 5,000 people were Cherokee, who were killed by illness, hunger, and starvation during the migration to the west. The number of people killed is nearly 20% of the population of all three tribes. The smaller tribes in northern Ohio were also severely damaged by the chase. During the landfills of the North American Red Cross, the Americans carried out hundreds of bloodshed investigations. In 1862, the United States underwent a bloodbath by the Red Cross. The country's history is recorded as the Dakota War of 1862. The Dakota people have for groups living in temporary housing in southwestern Minnesota. In the Western development, they were treated badly by the white people and were shot in the back of the head. The rare goods that came to them, as well as being oppressed by the merchants, their lives were difficult. In the summer of 1862, the Dakota lost their lives due to illness and starvation. About 7 million Reds lived in North America before the European colonial era. About two-thirds live in the territory of the United States. By 1900, there were only 237,200 Reds living in the United States. The decline was 95%. In the book titled American Holocaust, American historian David Starno claims that the desperate killing of indigenous people in America by many campaigns of Europeans and the next generations is the most heinous genocide in human history. The content of the movie Pocahontas can be not historical enough, but the music is. I Never See Him Again. The breakup of Pocahontas for John Smith was partly a historical reflection. When the relationship between the American and the United States was getting worse, Pocahontas of the next life was kidnapped by a Western shipyard, then married to a farmer who was a pharmacist named John Rolfe. They only met once after a long time, but it was the last time and never had a chance to meet again. Many people ask the question whether Columbus was responsible for all these things, for the suffering of the Reds, but we believe that if not Columbus, there would be another white-haired explorer looking for America. The most important thing for the Reds' extermination is the burning idea, the bottomless greed of the United States and European countries at that time. Any invasion is based on the basis of a nation that considers itself superior to other nations, and that unparalleled idea is what caused so many war crimes. For millions of people,